Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Three Geeky Dads Escape Pod podcast. Again, we've got Marc and Dean Kaluzdian, and this is Marc and Dean's double feature, or Marc and Dean's Dean and Marc's Obscure Adventure. So this is the episode where they talk about their go-to favorite Halloween movies, where Marc is going to talk about The Fog, and Dean is talking about Burnt Offerings.
This is your 2-minute warning. This ship will self-destruct in exactly 2 minutes.
Launch all escape pods as soon as they are filled!
Hey, you're not permitted in there. It's restricted. You'll be deactivated shortly.
Hey, I assume you tried to gain control of the escape pod in Dock 14.
Yes, I tried to gain control. There's an escape pod in Dock 14?
Hey, that's my escape pod! Who are you? I'm the bearded lady! But are you one of the freaks?
According to this, there's a single occupant escape pod called the Deus Ex Machina.
Escape pod was jettisoned during the fighting. No life forms were aboard.
She must have hidden the plans in the escape pod.
Hey, look! There's a prize inside that box of ham dingers. An escape pod.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Hello, happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dean and Marc's Obscure Adventure, brought to you by the Three Geeky Dads as one of their escape pods. I am, of course, Marc Macrina from Three Geeky Dads, and with me is...
I'm Dean Kaluzdian.
Hello, Dean.
Hi.
And happy Halloween to you.
Happy Halloween to you.
This is our time.
I'm very excited.
Down here. So we are very excited. This is the spooky season, our favorite season. I would like to think that this is where we, thank you, Brian, where we shine the most and have the most fun in life.
I have to tell you, I was actually at the dentist the other day, and the
That's horrifying.
Yeah, I was wearing my typical Rock and Shock hoodie and my I think it was like a Dracula Prince of Darkness t-shirt. And she said like, "Oh, are you all getting ready for Halloween?" And I said, "Well, this is actually how I dress 12 months out of the year, but I come into style for 1 month of those months." Yeah.
You're more accepted.
The 1 month that I blend.
Less look. Same here. My wardrobe consists of all black Halloween or horror-inspired t-shirts and jeans, and that's about it.
That's pretty much the same
And that's
thing.
never changed, ever.
Yeah. So Halloween, it used to be a workman's holiday for me because I did tons of haunted houses and that type of thing. I've whittled those down. Now we just sit and watch Halloween movies.
That's the way to do it.
We have to have a certain chunk of movies that we watch every year, and kind of like the Christmas season, we have to watch all the Christmas specials in 25 days. You know, we got 31 days in October to sit and watch as many of the movies that we like to watch.
Same here. I generally start in August or late August with the summertime horror films that, you know, where the actors are often in a hot environment and very sweaty and running away from dirty, stinky people, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes, any of those. Jaws, of course.
Well, one of our future episodes, I really want to do beach horror.
Oh, yes.
So, like Blood Tide or Blood Beach.
Blood Beach with John Saxon.
Any of the Blood
Absolutely.
Vacation movies.
Yeah, we'll get there. But it is kind of a busy month because we both do conventions.
Tonight, my unconventional conventionist.
And I don't know about you, but I got a couple coming up. I know you and I are going to be at at least one.
Yeah,
together,
Monster
right?
Expo.
Yeah.
Monster
Right.
Expo.
Yep, which by the time you hear this might have already happened. So
Yeah, so we had a great time.
I hope so. I'm sure we
seeing you.
did. Yeah. I'm going to say we did because you never know who's listening. No, I'm sure. It's an awesome time. It was great last year, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, I'll be selling my artwork in T-shirts, and you'll be selling Werewolf with a Chainsaw.
Yeah, issues 1 and 2, and unfortunately, probably not 3, because that's coming later in the month.
Well,
But
you can sit there and describe it to people.
I'm just going to tell them. I'm going to perform it with puppets, sock puppets. That's what I'll do.
A flip book. You can quickly doodle yourself a flip book.
But I will, listen, I'm going to shamelessly plug myself real quick and say I will be at Rubber Chicken Comics in Bellingham on October 29th because we will have issue 3 by then, and I'll be there to sign, and there's going to be an awesome sale at Rubber Chicken. Jay puts on the best sales as always, so
That
I'm sure
he
I'll
does.
see you there at some point.
I will be. I'll be stopping by.
Excellent. Awesome. I was going to say excellent and absolutely, and it came out the same way.
I think it was
winging it.
either a free comic book day or a Halloween comic fest that we actually met at.
It was.
Yeah.
It was the first one of his that I ever did. It was free comic book day.
Oh, it was a free comic book
I'm
day.
pretty
You
sure,
were definitely there at a table with your artwork.
Right. Yep.
I got introduced to you.
And the rest is history.
It's been
Well, we had
amazing
Hammer
ever since.
shirts. You had the Twins of Evil shirt on Chicken Chat, and I, as well as Brian, who's producing this show of Three Geeky Dads, are huge Hammer fans. So we saw that right away and said, "Oh yeah, we got to be friends with him," because that's how Brian and I became friends. T-shirts.
That's why I wear my Hammer shirt. So all the people who know, who are in the know, we can kind of cite each other out.
So very quickly, before we get into our two main movies that are on the Obscure Marquee for tonight, our double feature, what are, very quickly, some of your go-to ones? I'm sure there's
Halloween.
a lot.
There are a lot.
What sticks out?
So I definitely always like to watch Creepshow.
Mm-hmm.
We always do Creepshow. We tried to watch The Abominable Dr. Phibes the other night because my fiance is a big Vincent Price fan, and that is one of the best ones to watch at Halloween. And I'm like, I know there's one other one, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Well, some of these we'll be talking about in the future, so I don't want to get too deep into them. There's another one that I'm forgetting. And after, you tell me yours, and I'll probably remember which.
I go for ones that, there are those that I'll watch year-round, and then there are those that I just go to for Halloween because they're the best time to watch them. That being John Carpenter's Halloween, which is the obvious choice. But I also do Phantasm. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because it's cemeteries and mortuaries and things, but Phantasm's a big one. The Fog, which we'll be talking about tonight. So all the Universal ones. House of Wax with Vincent Price is another one that I do. And I revisit the Chucky movies for some reason. Yeah, which, I'm a big Child's Play fan. I know, it's gotten a little silly, but I love every incarnation of it. I don't know. I'm a big slasher guy, so, and I'm a big Brad Dourif fan. So there are many things that contribute to my love of those movies.
So we have the one that we're going to talk about tonight, which is, I almost always, because I also did Haunted Houses for a long time. And so this one always kind of like, I'm going to watch this one to get me into the mood of going for creepy house thing. I also watch a lot of the ones that, like I said, my fiance tends to pick. It's because we definitely watch Sleepy Hollow every Halloween.
Okay, so same with Sarah.
And it's kind of like I almost let her have the picks during this season because the rest of the season is all it's still all horror movies all the time.
Right.
But, so Sleepy Hollow and Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola one.
Yeah.
Which is playing in the theaters the week before Halloween. Fathom Events is doing it. So
cool.
It's been 30 years since I've seen that in the theater. So
I saw that in the theater. That was an experience. Yes. It was one of my first rated R movies I got to see in the theater.
Oh, really? So I'm a tiny bit older.
A little bit, but I'm still I got white in my beard. We can relate. Cool. Shall we?
Let's jump right into it.
So on the Obscure Marquee tonight, we do have Burnt Offerings from 1976. Thank you. I'm like 19, right? Not 1870. That'd be
or as we geeks tend to think, a year before Star Wars. It's always
Brian's nodding.
It's not 6 years after I was born, but a year before Star Wars.
So you guys do Star Wars. I always do Batman. It's the '89 Batman movie for me. Okay. So anything before '89 was before 6th grade. That's what I remember.
If you're a true geek, that would be one BB-1.
Before the Battle of Yavin.
That's it.
Wow, I'm impressed and a little frightened. Then he
jogs
jogs away.
Nerdy.
Thank you, Brian. Brian Ramsey.
Yeah, so 1976. It was directed by Dan Curtis.
Yes.
And based off of a book. I did not know, all the years that I've loved this movie, I never knew that it was based off of a book. But apparently, so in the very quick, because I'm going to admit, this one is one that I just love watching and never did any type of research on it until yesterday. And so I will talk about more about what I like about it, but doing a little bit of research. So I was working in a library recently and saw on the wall they had a poster of Burnt Offerings, the book.
Huh.
And I actually said out loud to nobody, "It's a book?" And then looked around and there's a librarian looking at me and
she went, "Shh,
I'll be over here." Shh. But apparently it was originally going to be a movie directed by Bob Fosse. And if you can't see me, I'm doing jazz hands.
I can see.
So Bob Fosse was going to do it and got talked out of it. There wasn't a book yet. And so speculation on the internet, as is where I did my quick bit of research. Did not interview anybody. And apparently that the book came after that, maybe based off of the screenplay. And then, Dan Curtis, he of many a TV horror movie and Dark Shadows. Most people know him from Dark Shadows. We'll be talking about some of his movies in a future episode when we talk about TV horror.
And also his version of Dracula, right? Didn't he?
Dan Curtis did a fantastic version of Dracula. Yeah. King of TV horror. And we'll talk about this a little further too, but also our favorite, Kolchak the Night Stalker, which he produced the first one and directed the second one.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that one.
We are very excited for that. And so Dan Curtis, this is one of his few feature films. His other two were House of Dark Shadows and one of the other Dark Shadow
I'm
movie.
not sure. Either I can't throw anything for this one.
Yeah. We'll remember it. House of Dark Shadows, Night of Dark Shadows.
There you go.
Night of Dark
You were
Shadows.
close.
Yeah. Just one of the insert title here. House of Dark Shadows, which is fabulous, and Night of Dark Shadows is not as fabulous as House of Dark Shadows. And so this is a feature film. It stars Karen Black and Oliver Reed. Lee H. Montgomery is the kid in it. Betty Davis, who all of these. Burgess Meredith is fantastic.
Oh, he's great.
A very brief appearance. Eileen Heckert, who you might not know.
I know her, and I cannot think of where I saw her. I looked her up on IMDb, and I still don't know. I know I've seen her, but I can't remember.
She is one of those old actresses that probably crept into our mind from 70s, 80s television, and or earlier stuff, because she's not a young woman in this movie in 1976. She's kind of the same age as Burgess Meredith, and. Then a couple other people, we'll get to them in a little bit. So I can tell you a quick kind of synopsis of the movie. So the family is Oliver Reed is married to Karen Black. They are Marion and Ben Rolfe. They have a kid, Davy Rolfe. Cute kid.
Very good, and a very good actor, too.
Yeah. Really, throughout the whole thing, you kind of buy the peril that he's in and that his parents are... getting a little wacky.
And probably the only person I feel bad for. I guess Betty Davis, too, because she tries to reason with everything and help, but he's the one that I'm most sympathetic to.
So Oliver Reed and Karen Black take their child and they move to this house. So the movie begins with your very typical TV or 70s movie where you're just following the car through the forest until you get to this kind of decrepit old mansion.
Yeah.
And in the mansion is Burgess Meredith, who is Arnold Allardyce, and Eileen Heckert, who is Roz Allardyce. They're brother-sister, and they're very creepy. And Burgess Meredith plays, he's almost like very playful and very eccentric.
It was like a Twilight Zone character. One of the many that he played. The glasses episode. I can't remember who he played, but that character, but just slightly more sinister. Almost too kind and too smiley.
Yeah, almost like Willy Wonka in a sort of like this old Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
So. The brother and sister have welcomed the family into their house. They're renting the house. In the book, I believe it's supposed to be in New York, but they've relocated the story to California for the movie. So they're welcoming them in, but the deal they have to stay in this very elaborate but decrepit manor is that the family has to feed the mother who's off in a room,
3
times a day. They have to bring her 3 meals of a day. and they get to have a summer home for $900 a month, I think it was. It was some ridiculously low price.
Right.
That the family's like, are you sure? I think we're leaving. Like, this is $900, are you sure? What's the catch?
Yeah.
That they
there's no catch. It's a blessing.
Oh,
You got to leave a tray for a strange old woman who never leaves the wing of the house, and that would be a deal breaker. I'd be like, no. Like, even if I wasn't aware I was in a horror film, even if haunted house formulas never existed in this universe, I would not do that. That's just an inconvenience.
And so you get the idea, like, okay, so maybe this is a haunted house that they're moving into. Like, what's the deal with this house? So they end up coming into the house. There's a kind of a dead garden in the house, not inside the house, but in the greenhouse. And they move in. We don't see the brother and sister again for a good long while. And Betty Davis, who plays their aunt, also moves in with them. She's like their older aunt. And they end up just kind of starting off their lives in this house and doing a little bit of fixing up here and there. But, basically there's not a lot going on. Like they're just living in this house. But very quickly, like the little boy falls and cuts himself, and a little bit of his blood starts the grass livening up again. Yeah. And then you have little creepy things here and there happening like that. And slowly the house starts getting a little nicer as they're living there. Oh, I also forgot to tell you, on the mantle, there's pictures of the house.
Yeah.
Like there's several pictures of the house and pictures of people, one of whom is Dan Curtis in the picture on the shelf.
Yep.
And so they're kind of like, oh, who are these people? Like, this must be from ages before, like people who've lived in the house before. And so you get the idea something funny is going on in this house. And the wife, Karen Black, ends up taking care of the mother, and nobody else sees the mother that's locked away in this room except Karen Black. And she's starting to get a little wacky. And Oliver Reed starts getting a little crankier, which is typical Oliver Reed, Oliver Reed, for those of you who don't know, played Fagin in the Oliver movie. He was
in The Brood.
The Brood.
Yep.
He was a werewolf in the...
Leon from Curse of the Werewolf.
Yeah.
He's in Tommy. He's in The Three Musketeers. Gladiator, his last role.
Oh, yeah.
Always a favorite of mine.
And so not getting too specific into all the little details as it goes along to keep us in time, but there starts to be a slow unraveling of the family. And Karen Black starts to get a little creepier. She starts wearing Victorian clothes. And I tend to think Karen Black's a little creepy as an actress to begin with. There's something, in all of her performances. And she's also in Dan Curtis's Trilogy of Terror, for those of you who haven't put it together, and that Dan Curtis did both of those. And so there's a point where the boy gets almost drowns in the pool because the water starts bubbling up. And it is kind of weird because it is like, is the house affecting them, or, is the house haunted? And you're kind of unsure. And Oliver Reed keeps seeing this ghostly, spectral... Great.
He's a hearse driver.
Hearse driver. Yeah, tall, lanky.
You know who he is, and it didn't dawn on me until I looked it up. He's the henchman from Naked Gun 2.5 who stalks not Jamie Presley. Oh my God. Priscilla Presley, thank you, Brian, in the shower, and then she starts singing in the shower, and then he stops his attack and starts singing with her. It's a very hilarious moment, but he just has this face, like he was born to play henchmen and evil people and bad guys, and he's fantastic in this. For the amount of screen time he has.
He's so creepy.
Yeah.
Like, that is, I always keep thinking that that this part is from Tales from the Crypt, because it feels incongruous to the rest of the movie. Like it really is kind of this weird, like, evil guy floating around his dreams.
Well, it's pretty much the most straightforward supernatural part of this.
And so you have, Karen Black getting a little wacky. It kind of like The Shining. And what year was The Shining?
1980. So this came after.
I can see that this might have had some some influence on the story in The Shining, or just kind of. I'm unsure of which came first, but there are things that are similar in Oliver Reed's character becoming a little more abusive to the son,
but then quickly realizing what he's done was bad and kind of becomes the hero. Like he's the voice of sanity. Well, spoiler, when Betty Davis passes,
Betty Davis dies. She
was the voice of reason, right?
Yeah.
But then Oliver Reed quickly realizes something's wrong, and Karen Black is
she doesn't come to the funeral.
She's becoming the villain essentially in this, which is. In these kind of films, usually it's the other way around. Like you take The Shining, you take Amityville.
Oh, I think he realizes that he's being affected.
Right.
And she doesn't. But his kind of abusiveness is, I think, as she's getting quirky and aloof, he's getting downright, like the scene where he's kind of almost attacking the son.
Well, that's probably one of the most uncomfortable scenes to watch.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
But my point being, usually it's the wife that's like, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. There's something wrong with you, and this one flips it.
And it does. And kind of the scene that always brings me back to it. And there was another movie around the same time that I always got this mixed up with, because when they're driving away. I always remembered them driving away and ending up back where they began, which I think is a segment from the Monster Club, the Amicus, the late Amicus movie. And so they're driving away and it's the father and son try and escape, and the wife doesn't want to go with them.
Yeah.
Because they start to see the house is changing. The house is shedding its old. One of the coolest effects, like it's such a simple effect. The house is just dropping its shutters, and beneath the shutters are newer, nicer shutters.
Yeah.
Like it's shedding its skin in the house.
Well, there's all these little things, right? Like it's subtle. There's a dead plant, but there's a green leaf.
Yep, that's one of the first, because Burgess Meredith points that out in the beginning.
Right.
Like,
it's the
place
giving
is getting
house.
nicer. Yeah.
There's no light bulb in the pantry 1 minute, and Betty Davis says, "Oh, you need to put a light bulb in here," and then the son goes in there right after, and there's the light bulb, and it's little things like that, which are very creepy, very subtle, but very effective.
And the house is like draining their life force.
Yeah,
and
it's eating them. Essentially.
And so they don't escape. A tree falls in their way, and they don't get out.
Oh, God. And when he's trying to get through that tree, and that kid is screaming, I want to mention again, the kid is a phenomenal actor.
No,
Child actors, you either, it's one way or another with them. You can tell they're either trying to act and they can't, and they knew somebody, to get the part, or they just happen to be really good. But this dude had the chops. This kid he had me really. I'm in these old time films, I really don't care what happens. To especially older kids, I'm like, shut up, you brat. But this guy, like he had me almost bawling. I felt so bad for him because his screams are very genuine. Both getting drowned in the pool, and when Oliver Reed is trying to continuously drive the car through the tree, and he's just he's hitting his face against the dashboard. He's all bloody, and the kid's screams are so genuine.
And there's
awesome.
nothing, it might be more of a point of the time. If this movie was made right now, I think you'd have the kid complaining, talking about the dad doesn't spend enough time with him.
Which is usually why I don't like them.
But this is, the kid just goes along to get along.
Yeah.
But then ends up, like, every time he goes in the pool, almost drowns, and, like, ends up in some kind of, like, he literally, just gets there and gets hurt. And it's not, like, a big deal outside of the fact that it's rejuvenating. That, like, his pain is rejuvenating the house.
Yeah.
And so he really does, he's almost like a blank cipher that you really do, like, oh, I understand that kid. And I can feel him, like, just kind of floating around alone because his parents are getting a little wacky, and his great aunt has died, who was, like you said, the voice of reason. And so we end up with Oliver Reed going back into the house looking for his wife. We had, at first, she came and got them, and he blamed her and was like, no, you're part of this. Like, you don't want us to leave. You are the bad guy. And
you're obsessed with the house.
Right.
You're obsessed with this lady. You're obsessed with the room. It's a great performance from both of them.
So finally, Oliver Reed ends up going up to the wife disappears for a little bit. Oliver Reed ends up going up to the room. He's like, I'm taking care of this. I'm going to go talk to that old lady and tell her we're leaving. And he goes up into the room, and there is no old lady but Karen Black sitting there, completely dressed up like the old lady, looking like the old lady.
Milky white eyes.
Right. And very similar to Paranormal Activity, ends up hurling him out the window.
Right.
Like that kind of like,
that. Yeah.
It's not done the same way or exactly the same, but it did remind me of that. Hurls him out the window, and the sun is outside. He lands like on the car, and the sun is right there, like, oh my God. And in a move that probably, again, wouldn't happen in a movie today, then the house drops its chimney. Spoilers. You've had 30, 40 years to watch
Yeah, these
this.
are old, guys.
So drops the chimney on the boy.
Yeah.
And it ends. Like, it is all right, we're done. And so I'm sorry, it doesn't completely end there, because we have Burgess Meredith and his sister arriving back at the house.
Right. But you don't see them. You only hear
you hear
them
their voices,
talking.
which is another thing that Dan Curtis did in the Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. The kind of disembodied voices, and you see the picture of the family is now on the counter, and they're talking about how good it is to have their mother back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of Karen Black has now been taken over by the mother, which has been borrowed in a few contemporary movies. Like when I saw The Skeleton Key. Again, spoilers on Skeleton Key. I apologize.
Oh, I don't know. I saw that once.
Skeleton Key kind of uses the same type of possession storyline. It's kind of a twist in the movie.
Yeah,
and also the Jordan Peele movie, the first Get Out. What the end of that reminded me tremendously of Burnt Offerings. Like I feel like there was some Burnt Offerings influence in that one.
There could have been. I feel like the house eats people. The Burgess Meredith and Eileen, the actress's name again. I apologize.
That was I tend to forget her name. I have
it's
it.
The last name. She's in that one thing that I saw that I couldn't
Eileen
remember.
Eileen Heckard.
The two of them are basically feeding people to this house. I almost think, because that's what it, as soon as a little blood touches the ground, everything starts to get nicer. They feed off the blood, they feed off the energy. And Karen Black, to me, or becoming the mother, represents the heart of the house. And every now and then, they got to give this house a new heart, and it just lives on until they give more people to it.
Or just the house that they use the house to, because I think if you look in all the pictures, there's usually a trio. And so, Burgess Meredith and his sister and all the Allardyce family. I shouldn't blame it all on Burgess Meredith. They're all rejuvenated and have this kind of like revolving possession that, maybe Burgess Meredith and his sister were people who visited the house originally, that then they've been possessed at some point.
Right, and they're kind of the caretakers until...
Right, until they've aged out, and then someone new comes in and they take over their bodies. So that kind of... So it has a little bit... Apparently the book has an even more open end, and Dan Curtis originally didn't want to do it because it was so open-ended.
Yeah.
But it does have that, like... I think that's why I like it so much, because it makes me think about like, oh, well, are Burgess Meredith and them, like, were they originally just people who came to take care of the house?
It leaves some sense of closure, but enough for you to still use your imagination to finalize anything.
Yeah, so that's my go-to Halloween movie. I love going to see it because I love seeing it each year. I tend to forget that I've seen it the year before, and like, oh, I can't wait to see Burnt Offerings again. And always kind of go back to it.
I had seen this once a long time ago, and I honestly did not remember anything about it. Revisiting it, I forgot how grim it was for a TV movie.
Oh no, it was not a TV movie.
Oh, I thought it was.
It's one of his 3 theatrical.
Oh, I see. I saw AB. Never mind. It was something I read. Well, anyway, still, even for a film. Like it just it seemed very low budget. Like they had a couple of stunts, but it's very minimal to no effects. It all relies on the performances. Yeah. I love it. I think it's incredibly grim. The ending had me like speechless. I thought I thought at least the kid was going to get away, because back then killing kids wasn't a thing. It was like the kid usually lived. The kid usually lived, and the dog might have died, but that was about it. But not only does he die, but he's this lovable kid who you're rooting for and you want him to survive, and he almost does. When they're in the car and they're ready to drive away, and the moment Karen Black says, "Oh, I didn't tell Mrs. I actually rammed my right fist down on the table, like, God damn it, no!
Yeah, don't go back in the house.
My wife comes into the room. What's the matter? I'm like, she's going back in. What?
You don't go back in the
Never
house.
go back in the house. And then Oliver Reed's like, oh, I'm going to check on her. And I'm like, well, they're screwed. You had your shot.
That's it. That's it. Kid's going to go drive off in the car himself.
And that's what I thought. I thought he was going to run away. He had plenty of time to get out of the way of the chimney.
You don't expect a chimney to fall.
I don't. But a great pick. It was awesome revisiting this movie. I really did like it.
I'm glad you liked it.
Absolutely. I did. I like Karen Black a lot. I've seen her in a lot of movies. Invaders from Mars, House of a Thousand Corpses. She tends to steal the show with a lot of her zanier performances. And I love Burgess Meredith and Oliver Reed. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of. So this was a great cast and an awesome story. So check it out, guys.
Right.
And let's go to the lobby, get a snack.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right, welcome back. And hope you got your refreshments, and please throw away any trash before leaving.
This is the best popcorn I've ever had.
It sure is. It's because it's made of people. No, it's not true. Imagine if it was, though. So now for our second feature. This is a go-to pick from yours truly. It is 1980's The Fog. Now, we tend to go obscure. This is not probably the most obscure film. I know a lot of people have heard of this one, but I don't hear a lot of people talk about it as much as they should, especially when it comes to John Carpenter films. I feel this one gets overlooked by a lot of people. I do
think so, because it is one of his great classics. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of minor John Carpenter films, as can be admitted.
Absolutely.
But this is one of the great ones, but it's overshadowed by some of the other more marketed, great John Carpenter movies.
Right. It was part of a series of home runs. I mean, it was between Halloween and the, Escape from New York and The Thing, and just more noticeable films, and that I think did better, or just were better received. And The Fog is it's a movie that some people claim doesn't hold up. I disagree, but I can see why somebody would say that. Like, I would
also disagree. I think it really holds up.
I've shown this film to some younger friends of mine, and they've just been bored out of their minds. Like, it is a slow build up to everything. This isn't a film that jumps out at you or gets to the ghosts right away. And for a lot of mainstream horror people who just like their scares quick, I don't think you will get that with this. This is a film that's paced differently. There's a slow build up. Things happen in the town of Antonio Bay, with some subtle scares at first, but gradually crescendo into this moment of pure horror.
Can I jump in on your description?
Yeah.
So we projected it the other night. We put up a 10-foot projection screen in my living room, and I didn't realize how much of the movie is just scene setting Antonio Bay, which I can understand. Mm-hmm. Some people might find that a little slow and boring, but there are these big, calm moments of just the empty streets, the there's a huge part because it starts at 12:07, or we're moving into the time that the ghosts are coming, and there's all these just slow pictures of the clock as it's ticking, empty streets, and they go back to the empty streets of Antonio Bay so many times, and then later on when the fog's rolling in, lots of scenes of just empty streets.
Yeah.
And it's effective, but I can also see where other people might say, oh, that's boring.
Yeah,
a more contemporary eye might want something that moves faster, that doesn't set the scene. I would say it's, moves just as fast as your typical A24 movie.
Yeah.
But, definitely, it has a visual pace to it that is a little more pensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also think this is like 1980, so there's still some of that late 70s mentality of filming. Very slow, standard cinematography, establishing shots, the credits still rolling as the movie starts.
Right.
And they're done in kind of a TV format.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's nothing fancy about the credits. There's, you know, special guest star, as, you know, it's very television oriented like. And I think that with a lot of films of 1980, where, you know, the 80s is known as this outrageous time of horror with all effects and you know, show and gore and everything. This is still on the cusp where, like, you still have the slow burn of that 70s feel in it. So it's kind of crossing the line for me. And it doesn't really get 80s for me until you start seeing the pirates toward the end. And you start seeing
and you
the
still
kills.
don't really see, you don't see a lot. It's very reminiscent of his work on Halloween.
Yeah.
Because it has that very slow, get to know the characters,
Right.
see people in the street, you know, that like something's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And just wait for it.
Yeah, there's an
Wait for
anticipation of it. And just, it's funny, John Carpenter is not a huge Val Lewton fan. I remember seeing a documentary about that, but there is a lot of Val Lewton in this picture where it's what you don't see at first, or you see very little, or, you know, what's inside the fog. You don't know at first. You know at the end, but for about 45 minutes of the movie, you have no idea what's in there. And that's very Val Lewton-like.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And it really is effective because it is just the fog rolling in. And you can tell us about the beginning of the movie because that sets the whole tone of the movie.
Yeah, I'll dive right in.
Yeah,
sure. All right, so this takes place in an island town, if you will, a small town on Antonio Bay. It's about to undergo its 100th film festival.
Congratulations!
It made 100 films. It's birthday. It's Antonio Bay's birthday.
Centennial.
Centennial. I like that. Thank you. See, that's why you're here. You've got smarter words than that. Jump in when I fumble, please. It happens a lot. So it is the time. It is. They are.
Although we might be wrong on Centennial, though. It is a celebration.
See, you
of time.
sounded good. You sounded like you knew what you were talking about, but. So, like you said, we get a lot of. Well, first we start off with John Houseman. John Houseman is telling the story of the pirates who seek revenge on the conspirators of Antonio Bay, who basically set up a fake lighthouse, a fake beacon to lure the ship to its destruction in order to take the gold. And the pirates are said to come back to get their gold and revenge. And it's very similar to Garfield Halloween. As I say that, when I saw the Garfield Halloween special with the Ghost Pirates, I'm like, wait a minute, this is The Fog, just made for kids. So you have John Houseman. It's a nice campfire, you know, it's a ghost story. And this is a ghost story movie. And you have the old guy telling the ghost story to the audience.
It's a tone. And it is... You'd never find this today. Like, you'd never find a movie opening with, and, you know, as they always say, like, you know, don't say it, show it. Mm-hmm. In this case, like, it really works.
Well, you got the right actor,
yes.
Telling with the great voice, and you got you have him holding the pocket watch, and it ticks in right on midnight at 12 o'clock.
John Houseman looking kind of scraggly.
He is.
Whereas usually, like, Silver Spoons or Paper Chase. I remember him on the paper, like, you better learn here at the Paper Chase.
I just remember him on Scrooged.
Oh, Scrooge!
At the time, that was, you know, it was a cold and bleak night.
And he was the grandfather on Silver Spoons.
See, I forgot about that. I didn't even remember that. I mean, I've seen him in things, but I mostly just remember Scrooge.
But yeah, he says his storytelling really says, because even if you don't pay 100% attention to the story that he's telling, you get the idea what the movie is going to be.
Right. So he tells his little tale, and then the camera pans up. There's this creepy piano music, this like two-note kind of soft, hauntingly melodic music, which is just awesome.
I actually think it's one of Carpenter's best scores.
And like, again,
it's not over the top. It's subtle.
It does not get recognition.
It's true. It's true.
God damn it! There's some good music in this. So then the title comes up, and we have the credits as we see the empty streets of Antonio Bay. We hear the voice of Adrienne Barbeau. Playing Stevie Wayne, the who's basically, you know, she's the DJ of the town. She's got her little booth in the lighthouse, but she's
Call
the narrator
me Stevie.
of the story.
Everybody does.
she's the crypt keeper kind of in this. But a beautiful crypt keeper. You know, I love Adrienne Barbeau. Always have. So.
You know, it's funny. I'm not usually an Adrienne Barbeau
Really?
fan. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, even though she stars in my favorite Swamp Thing movie.
Oh, that's right. Cable.
That, the original gender switching in movies.
Yeah.
So there's usually an edge to her that I don't like. I think it's because I never understood Maude when I was a kid. And so I think that like carried over into me watching her in horror movies. But in this one, she's so engaging. And there's something charming about her.
So shamefully, I became aware of her in Creepshow before anything else. So to see her go from Billy to this, even though she was known more for playing roles like Stevie Wayne before Billy, I saw Billy going to something else, and I was like, wow, this woman can act. She's really good. Billy is
super
very,
versatile
very sexy in this, and she sounds great. And so she's, wishing happy birthday to Antonio Bay, and there's jazz music playing, and there's all these things are happening at once. You're seeing, just quiet shots of the town, the local, convenience store, the gas station. Then all of a sudden car alarms start going off, a gas pump, like just inexplicably, it just pops off the handle
and starts dispensing gas, free
gas at unbelievably low prices.
And a car on a lift goes up and down.
That's right.
It was actually like, oh, this is Christine. We're watching Christine. I got the wrong John Carpenter movie.
A prelude of things to come. And you've got the sign, just signs are rocking in a wind that's not there. It's just all these little subtle touches that set up your basic easy comics revenge story. You know something is amiss, and you know something's going to happen. You hear the story from the old man, who I said Stevie Wayne, but maybe it's John Houseman, who's like the crypt keeper. There's your ghost host sort of introduction into what you're getting.
Who never appears again in the movie.
No,
like it is purely an introduction.
Old Mr. Mackin. Yeah. That's it. That's the only time you see him. And then you start to meet the characters. You meet Hal Holbrook first, who plays a drunk preacher who doesn't come out and say it, but it kind of looks like he's exhausted and has sort of lost his faith in everything to begin with. But it isn't until a piece of rock from the basement just for no reason breaks apart, and he finds the old diary of his great-grandfather. Yeah,
because that's why I was trying to think, is 100 years and too much for his great-grandfather?
Yeah.
But I guess
it's a ghost story. We'll go with that.
It works.
It's one of his ancestors, who's one of the original conspirators who lure the pirate named Blake and his crew to their demise. And he basically finds out that the founders of Antonio Bay are all real assholes, basically murderous assholes. And in fact, he has a line in the movie where he says, "Our celebration tonight is a travesty. We're celebrating murderers." And so you see him. There's John Carpenter in a very brief cameo as guy who sweeps up in church and has like one line and then leaves. And then you go over to Tom Atkins, the great Tom Atkins, one of my favorites.
Tom Atkins without a mustache,
but still doing well.
Yes,
this is pre-mustache Tom Atkins, who's still awesome. He's drinking his beer, driving his rickety old pickup truck. Jazz music's playing on the music by the Coupe de Villes, which was John Carpenter's band.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That's right. If you watch the special edition of Big Trouble in Little China, you can see the Coupe de Villes perform.
Oh,
which I believe was made up of John Carpenter. I think it was Nick Castle. I'm not positive, and Tommy Lee Wallace of Halloween 3 and Fright Night 2 and
speaking of Halloween, he of Halloween 3 picks up Jamie Lee Curtis of Halloween 1.
Right.
So it is like
universes collide. Jamie Lee Curtis, who's a hitchhiker who's never hitched before, but this is like her third or fourth ride in more ways than one, because the moment he gets in the truck, they have an exchange of dialogue, boom, in bed.
Yeah, it is crazy. She is the prototypical manic pixie dream girl. And it's like, what is she doing? She's adorable in this. Like, it's funny, people fall all over her performance in Halloween. I think she is wonderful in this one.
Yeah.
Like, there is something that there is a character to her character that just isn't in Halloween. Like
in Halloween, she's playing against who she really is. This one, there's a little more edge to her, a little more humor, which I guess Jamie Lee Curtis has often said. It's like she has been quoted saying, "I'm more like the other girls in Halloween in real life," and you kind of see that in The Fog.
Yeah, and she's fun.
Right.
It's kind of like, how is Tom Atkins getting this lady? Like, there is like
because he's Tom Atkins
of Halloween 3. He gets the girl like instant like. He is the most unleading man, leading man, and always gets the girl in like the most like, except when he's like the cop or the deputy, but in like this in Halloween 3, it's both like the ladies just instantly fall for him, and it always there always seemed he's probably younger than he looks in these movies, so it probably isn't as awkward seeming as it is, but it's always like, how did that girl just fall for this rather puffy-faced guy, that's kind of awkward and non-hero looking. Like,
he got her off. He gave her a ride to her destination when she admitted that she was lying about never hitchhiking. He just kind of takes it as, well, here, have a sip of beer, and you don't mind me having a beer while driving.
Are you weird?
Yeah, weird. Yes, I am. Yes, I am weird. Just so nonchalant. He admires her drawings. Doesn't take much. But it is.
He's
got a nice house.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned and prudish,
maybe,
but he that was like instant. He was like, it is like he's driving her. Where are you going? I don't know. Back to your place. Like, that is crazy fast.
It is. But even Tom Atkins has said it's not like this in real life. But he's just coincidentally has always been put in that part.
Yeah,
from
it
here
is.
On in. Halloween 3, even Night of the Creeps, with the dream sequence of him sitting on the beach with the sunglasses and the Miami Vice looking suit, and he's surrounded by hot babes in bikini, and you're like, yeah, that makes total sense. But why does it make total sense?
But they're great together. So speaking of Jamie Lee's mom is also in the movie.
That's right. They're in the movie together, though they don't have many scenes together. Actually, not until the end. They come together at the end of the. All of them congregate at the church. But she is basically the not the mayor, but she might as well be.
Yeah,
the
she's
mayor.
Basically playing the mayor from Jaws.
Right. She's the first citizen, whatever you want to call her, the town, whatever you want to call her. She's number one in that town, even though not officially the mayor. She might as well be.
Yeah.
She's got her assistant, Nancy Loomis, Lori, I believe, from Halloween. No, Annie from Halloween, and a regular John Carpenter. She was in Halloween 3 actually as Tommy, as Tom Atkins' ex-wife, and
I didn't put that together.
Yep.
And so it's funny, the relationship between the two of them is one of the most entertaining parts of the movie, because it is very like Janet Leigh is constantly insulting her.
Yeah, but she's insulting her back.
Yeah. They're totally like sparring back and forth with each other. And
right.
Kind of almost the type of thing that you feel like it's almost just set up that one of them is going to die at some point, and they're going to like reach out for each other and be like, no, I cared about you.
Yeah.
But it is a wonderful relationship in that. This movie has a lot of really fun, natural relationships between the characters.
Yeah, there's chemistry between everybody. The only one who's really playing it solo really is Adrienne Barbeau.
Right. Well, she's playing it solo, but she's
got
connecting with her son over the radio.
Right.
And she also has a few people that she's talking to.
Well, there's Dan, the weatherman, Charles Cyphers, who's an awesome dude. I got to meet him at Rock and Shock. The man was incredibly nice and awesome. He was his character's named Dan O'Bannon. Of course, named
after the
screenwriter of Alien and director of Return of the Living Dead. So many references. We'll never get through this. I'll stop. I'm sorry. Yeah. So you got your first night, and then the next day it's mostly Janet Leigh and Nancy Loomis getting ready for the festival, finding Hal Holbrook, and Hal Holbrook basically spends most of the second day reading the diary to Nancy Loomis and Janet Leigh, and they just want to get the hell out of there.
So here's the very interesting thing about this movie, and what makes it different than a lot of movies. Most movies, this gets revealed at the end.
Yeah.
Like that they're, you go through the whole movie like, why are we being attacked? It was because your forefathers killed all these people. And you find that out in the third act. And this, not only do you get kind of the story to start the movie, but you get this fog rolling in and nothing's really happening.
Well, there's knocking on the doors.
There's knocking on the doors.
And that's the second night it might have even been the first night, because Tom Atkins is in bed, and Jamie Lee Curtis is asleep. He gets startled by a knock at the door. He comes out, sees a figure at the door, and he goes to open it, but then the clock chimes, and then the ghost disappears.
And I also believe in that time period, we've also had the boat that's out on the water that has been attacked.
All right, so this might be night number 2.
The time time separation is kind of blurry.
It could be
me.
a 1 day, 2 day. Anyway, but we do. Yeah, we also get the 3 guys on the boat. One of them is Janet Leigh's husband, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And you got Buck Flowers, who's the drunk in Back to the Future, and every movie you can think of where there's a drunk, Buck Flowers was probably him. And they're just drinking and listening to Stevie Wayne and basically getting off on her voice and everything. And then Buck Flowers noticed there's a fog bank out there, and next thing you know, they're boarded by the ghost and they're killed.
In which we don't really see.
We
the
don't.
Ghost.
We hear it.
Yeah, and we see.
We see the fog. Yeah,
and we see a hand with a fishing hook or a catch hook. Which the one thing that I have to say, those hooks looked very contemporary.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of I made a movie back in the 90s, and we used hooks like that in the movie. And that was one of the things, I actually went through some hooks and we're like, no, that one looks too new. Like we've got but that was my one kind of complaint about this movie is the hook
they've
that
upgraded.
they were using, that they did not look like a hook that would be contemporary to those pirates.
They've been doing this a long time. They stopped.
They've upgraded.
Yeah,
they
had to get with the times. Blake did. So
so George Flowers' character's name, or Buck Flowers, his name is Tommy Wallace. In the movie.
Exactly.
So that's another
Tommy Wallace, who we just talked about, and Tom Atkins' character is Nick Castle, who we know as the original Shape from Halloween, director of Last Starfighter, and many other things.
There's also
a lot of John Carpenter tie-ins to that.
There's another great reference. At one point, a doctor is looking at the bodies that have been murdered. I believe the bodies of the three guys that were murdered.
I believe it's Napoleon Wilson from Assault on Precinct 13, who's the coroner who talks about the seawater and Darwin Johnston.
And Mark, what is the doctor's name?
His name is Dr. Phibes.
Dr. Phibes, yes. Another one of my Halloween go-to movies.
Another great Vincent Price performance.
Yeah, that is, when we saw that in the credits, I was just like, that is fantastic.
Yeah, I love the tie-ins. There's a character named Cronenberg in there, too, because Cronenberg and John Carpenter were really good friends at the time. So.
It's so good.
It's awesome. It's a fun movie. This is a fun film. Anyway,
so
moving on. So... ignoring day 1, day 2, day 3. Basically, what happens is they arrive the first night, cause mayhem, and then the next day there's things going on, like the Stevie Wayne's son waking Adrienne Barbeau up and asking for a stomach pounder and a Coke, whatever the hell a stomach pounder is. I still don't know.
Oh, and he finds a piece of the boat,
right?
The boat that crashed.
Well, it was a gold coin.
It was a gold coin
and then
first.
It turns into a piece of wood. He brings it over to his mom, wakes her up. She's got to get up and go to the lighthouse to set up. So he's got the babysitter, Mrs. Cobrit's coming, and he wants to go and play and everything.
I love Mrs. Cobrit's.
Oh, the Mrs. Cobrit scene is great.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's great.
A sweet old lady.
Kind of not to jump around too much, but...
We can jump around. This movie does jump around. Yeah. As we're talking about it, I realize there's a lot going on.
She ends up bringing the piece of wood to work.
Yeah.
It catches fire. The DJ gets murdered, or not the DJ, the weatherman. The weatherman.
Oh, the scene between the weatherman is great, because that's one of those things where you're hearing more of the killing than seeing it.
Right, and which is kind of basically what happens for the bulk of the movie.
Yeah.
You're hearing stuff, you're getting little snippets of knocks at doors.
The lights have gone out.
Yeah.
Everything's going crazy.
And so it's kind of these people are out on the edges, and slowly the fog is moving in. And she, being in the lighthouse, is able to kind of, observe where the fog is. And it is kind of how quickly she realizes that there's murder pirates in the fog.
Yeah, there's something in the fog.
And
which is a direct nod to The Crawling Eye.
Oh, okay.
There's something in the fog of that. The Crawling Eye was a huge influence on this movie.
A Swedish, it's like the Swedish Alps, right?
Yeah, something like that. All I know is it has the dude from F Troop in it. That's all it's. I mean, I think it's pretty cool. It's a cool little B movie, but it's not the thing from another world. It's
true.
Not as memorable, but it's fun.
So I said Mrs. Crawford's. So when the fog's coming in and Adrienne Barbeau is like, Bobby, is it? No,
Andy out of the house. Mrs. Kobritz, if you can hear me. And she's such a sweet old, lock the door, Andy. Don't. She's Aunt B. Don't let anybody in.
And then someone knocks at the door and she's like, I have to go find out who it is. And it's like, this is where I get like annoyed at all horror movies being just young people. Like it is, I enjoy my Friday the 13th and those, but movies where the ages are broad and you've got because you're gonna worry about a grandmotherly character.
Of course,
you get a little kid and you get a grandmother.
This
and
isn't
a
mean old nanny.
No.
This is a sweet old lady,
right? And a very natural. It's like her.
She's your grandmother. She's my grandmother.
Yeah.
She's your old aunt. Like
she's the lady who gave you cookies when you went Christmas caroling.
Exactly.
Like that. And
absolutely.
And so there's a knock at the door, and she wanders out into the fog, and you just hear
but it's right when he turns away. Andy is peering around the corner and saying, please, can I see? And she says, no, go to your room. And as soon as he turns, before she can say anything, she's grabbed into the fog. And then you hear the stabbing sounds. Like you don't see it, but this sweet old woman is getting mutilated.
Right. And so then the fog is creeping into his room, which ends up being a kind of a tense moment. It's kind of slowly creeping under the, which I feel is a scene that I saw as a kid and was creeped out by. That you can't breathe if you're going to shove stuff under the door to keep all air out.
Nope.
But here comes the fog. It's coming in.
And then you see the figures moving, and then you see there's more than one figure moving, which is which is just as frightening because you're like, oh wait, this is not something. This is a group of somethings. You know? But by then, I think you know who it is and who's coming. But still, the sight of it is just, oh yeah, wow.
And again, not kept as a secret. Like it is kind of built up that these guys are here to get revenge for the thing.
But what's great is they're going to go after anybody. They just need 6. They're not picky. Like, they're not necessarily going after, like, Hal Holbrook is an ancestor of one of the original conspirators.
You kind of expect that in the, like, all right, well, your grandmother was the one who burned me.
Exactly.
And your grandfather was the one who set the ship on fire.
Or maybe they were, and we just never got a glimpse.
I don't, but they don't.
Was Dan the Weatherman part of it, or was one of his ancestors part of it? Miss Kobritz?
I
we don't know about
so.
him.
Like, I mean, I think it is just, you're part of the place.
That's true, because they do go after Andy, and he's pretty innocent in all this.
Yeah, so in the end, we end up kind of everybody so Andy's rescued by...
the festival is cut short. Because of Mrs. Janet Leigh finds out her husband is in fact dead, and they close the procession early. Everybody needs to get home. Meanwhile, over the radio, Stevie Wayne's broadcasting, the fog's coming. The main characters do congregate again at the church, where they are stopped by the fog. And the pirates appear, and the head pirate, Blake, who's played by makeup effects artist Rob Bottin, which is awesome.
I was so excited when I saw that.
That was so cool, because that's how he landed the role in the Thing, because he just went in one day and was introduced to John Carpenter and was like, "Can I play something like Halloween?" And John Carpenter's like, "Yeah, whatever. Play this pirate. You're big and burly. Go ahead, do that." And so Father Malone, which is Hal Holbrook, steps up, and we realize the gold that they're looking for is the cross itself of the church, which is excellent and on many levels of symbolism and how awesome that is. That the notorious secret is kept in the most.
Is it the cross that they use in the
pure.
church, or is it a cross that they kept hidden in the church?
I thought it was the cross they used in the church. I could be wrong though.
I'm unsure.
I just remember he's in the main room, but maybe he does take it out.
He goes and gets it, and I couldn't figure out whether it was one that was just there or whether it was stowed away.
I always thought it was there, but he does appear with it out of a room, so you might be right. Yeah. But either way, it's a cool gimmick. It's a cool
it's
symbol of purity, which is hiding the most sinful secret of all, which is murder, right? So he gives Blake the cross, and the pirates go away. The fog goes away, and Adrienne Barbeau gives this great narration where, the fog could come again. If we don't find ourselves safe in our beds and this wasn't a nightmare, it could come back. Keep an eye out. To all the sailors at sea, keep an eye out on the fog. Meanwhile, Father Malone's alone in the church again, and he's wondering, why wasn't I taken? You got 5 of us. Why not me? And then as soon as he turns around, there's Blake, and his head gets cut off. And again, you don't see it. You just hear the noise. More effective when... Very quickly, because we got to wrap this up, but very quickly, I first saw this movie at the end. I was sleeping over at my grandmother's house, and I caught the end of this movie when the pirates are stalking Adrienne Barbeau when she's on top of the lighthouse. And you can see very quickly when the light shines on the ghost, the worms coming out of the face.
Yes, yeah.
Which I love. And there's not much of it, but when they show it, damn, is it good. But I remember seeing that as a kid and watching the end of the movie and hearing that narration. And then I had to go upstairs and sleep in the guest bedroom, which was, this was your grandmother's house from back then. So it's very old and decorating. Like the ambiance is like there's the picture of Jesus staring at you on the wall. And I'm like, is there worms on his face? Because
I know my grandmother's house was filled with porcelain Victorian dolls.
Oh, you
so
see,
when
I
we
didn't
stayed
have
over,
that.
we slept in the room with the porcelain Victorian
a lot
doll.
of Jesus pictures, though. My grandmother was very religious, and that's fine. But it made for a creepy bedroom. And after watching the end of
your
the fog,
grandmother kept a golden cross in her that she stole from some pirate.
I knew it. Yeah, it was her pasta spoon the whole time. No, and that's The Fog. Basically, this movie, again, very quickly, it is. I don't think it's talked about as much as John Carpenter, other John Carpenter films by mainstream audiences. I know it's got a following. I know diehard John Carpenter fans, I'm sure, love it, but I think it deserves to be talked about more. And it's a great movie for Halloween. It's a classic ghost story, ghost revenge, EC Comics kind of tale.
It's a simple movie.
It is.
Like it's a simple around the campfire ghost story.
Right.
Like, and that is. And it's effective in that. And he really gets it right. Like watching that, I love The Thing. The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's complex. There's stuff to figure out. It's a science fiction novel, like it's based off of. This one is a campfire tale. It's simple. People get murdered.
It's got
the
an urban legend
lepers
kind
get
of
murdered
quality,
and come back for revenge.
Yep.
Like it is definitely an urban legend. It's definitely a campfire story, and it plays like that. And the mood and the tone, the music, like I said, I actually think is one of his strongest scores in its simplicity.
I would agree with that. I love that score.
It sounds like a tone like. All of us who are trying to find good music to listen to at Halloween, you turn on your Halloween radio stations and all you hear is, variations of the Exorcist theme and the Halloween theme. And, as much as I love Halloween, I'm getting kind of tired of the Halloween
But
theme.
for geeks like us, we make our own playlists, and there you go.
And this one is everything you like about the Halloween theme.
Yeah.
But you haven't heard it on the radio like 100 times during the Halloween season.
Absolutely.
And so it plays very similar, but, very effective.
Yeah. So good picks all around. Both of these
I
are
enjoyed
great.
watching The Fog again.
Yeah, and it was good revisiting Burnt Offerings. So we both come away very satisfied with the movies we watch. And that makes for another great episode of Dean and Mark's Obscure Adventure. Dean, thank you very much again for joining for this. I look forward to another episode. I want to say thank you to Brian from Three Geeky Dads for producing this, as well as the whole Three Geeky Dads spin-off phenomena. Brian, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do you have anything to say very quickly about either film?
I've never seen Burnt Offerings, but I want to. I've heard a lot about it, and after listening to you guys talk about it for the last half hour, I really want to see it.
Cool.
Because I'm a big fan of Karen Black as well. I love Oliver Reed in Hammer's Curse of the Werewolf, and of course Gladiator and the Three Musketeers. And yeah, he's a great actor. And Bette Davis. A lot of people forget that she became quite the horror actress late in her career. And one of my favorites by her is a little overlooked Disney movie called The Watcher in the Woods.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dean's looking at me like,
yes.
That is, now you got me my... So that leads to my number one Halloween must watch outside of is Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
The
first movie that introduced me to Jonathan Pryce. I love Jonathan Pryce. Ever since that movie, he was a great...
Jonathan Pryce, who went from being a tall, lanky, creepy guy in that to a short, bald man in Brazil.
Now he looks like the Pope.
Yeah. That is one of my other go-to that I love for Halloween.
Yeah,
and one of the...
I would love to see The Watcher in the Woods pop up on Disney Plus. It's a Disney movie,
and it's not on.
That's
there.
not on there.
It's not on there.
Oh my gosh!
It came out at the time of like the Black Cauldron?
Yeah,
and the Watcher in the Woods, and there was a couple
Escape
other
from Witch Mountain.
Right. Well, that was like the mid '70s.
Which is more So
these were like early '80s. Like
that's true.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There was one or two other like dark Disney movies came out at that time.
Yeah,
and they're hard to find.
Yeah, Disney had an edge.
They kind of did.
They really did.
They kind of did. But
Black Cauldron, especially.
Yeah.
What are your very quickly? What are your give us a couple of go-to Halloween movies for you?
Well, I like the classics. I've been finding myself revisiting a lot of the old Universal movies and the Hammer movies. I can't get enough of those, especially this time of year.
Thank you very much again, Brian, for all your help with this episode.
Thanks for doing another excellent Escape Pod podcast.
Absolutely. Looking forward to more of these. Dean?
And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween,
and happy Halloween, everybody.
And until next time, I'm doing this on Three Geeky Dads for Halloween, but I'm doing this all the time for us, Dean. Good night out there, whatever you are.
Kevin, I'm still thinking of going to Monster Expo for Sunday, probably.
Sunday.
Quinn usually does her piano and music lessons on Saturday, so I think it'll be too much.
That's cool.
Oh, your library is doing a haunted lock-in. I don't know what the age thing of it. And they were talking about they were putting it out to the kids. I know the librarian, so I see the post. So I thought I'd tell you guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
cool.
Haunted lock-in.
If you can
that
do it.
Place is old and creepy.
It sure
it
is.
It's
Even
an old
driving
monastery.
through it is scary.
One of Quinn. I know you're not into it, but Quinn likes that show, Ghost Hunters.
Oh, I've seen that episode.
Yeah,
though.
and the one where they do the monastery here in town.
Yeah.
One of the Ghost Hunters episodes, they were actually looking for a guy that I had met. Like, it was one of the weirdest things.
What do you mean they were looking for a guy?
Because I did a haunted house down at one of the mansions in Newport. And the man who owned the mansion was this creepy older guy. And in the haunted house, he'd be wandering around.
Really?
During it. And then he either fell off or jumped off of a ledge. A couple of years later, and the mansion was known to be haunted to begin with. So now people are convinced that he's haunting it. So they were literally looking for the ghost of a human being that I had spoken to.
Jesus.
Like, that's the
Did they find him? Did he answer them? Did they catch him on EVP?
They always do.
I know, right?
That is the
Dean. Where's my $2?
So that was the one place that because I worked at another. My long-term haunted house was at the castle in Gloucester, the Hammond Castle.
Oh yeah, that's a cool place.
That's also known to be very haunted, but this place was the one place that I saw a flash go across the wall, and the hair on my back of my neck stood up.
Yeah.
Looked around to find out why there would be this flash,
and there was
both
nothing.
Me
that...
and my assistant saw it, and neither one of us could explain what it was. I'm sure there was an explanation, but it
but at the
felt
time,
like a different
And this was in Gloucester.
That was the Gloucester one. The crazy thing about there's a room that's blocked off and closed off. None of my people use it.
Yeah.
I know, you can't get in or out of it. And 2 years in a row, two of my friends don't know each other, never met, put them both in the same place, pretending to be grave diggers outside this window. And they both came and complained to me about the person staring out the window at them because they were freaking them out. And there was like
nobody there.
Nobody there. Like there's no like nobody was allowed in
Yeah.
there. Like
Yeah.
they were saying,
there's
like,
nobody in the house but us.
And it was like it freaked like there had to be some explanation for it. I'm
Yeah.
not believing that it was a ghost.
Yeah.
But the fact that two of my friends
It was the cardboard
not-
standee of Ted Danson
I know,
that somebody
right?
left behind.
2 years in 2 years in a row, same story, different people.
Wow.
And both to me, like that. It was just, I was like, oh my god. Like,
they saw me looking at
what
them.
did you see?
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.